obviously sometimes you just got to do what you got to do and help the people trying to get from one place to another. And maybe they can't declutter or whatever, but there's always going to be a way to present a property in a more appealing way visually to capture that audience.
Welcome to the Dream Home Podcast, the show where real estate meets real talk. Hosted by John Nagle, a seasoned expert with over $7 billion in real estate financing experience. This podcast features top realtors, builders, and financial pros. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, we've got the tools to help you make smarter moves. Here's your host, John Nagle.
Welcome back to another episode of the Dream Home Podcast, where we bring you the people, strategies, and stories that help buyers, sellers, and real estate professionals make smarter moves and create the life they really want at home. I'm your host, John Nagle with CMG Home Loans. Today's guest is someone whose brand is as memorable as her story. I'm excited to welcome Liz Rossof, broker owner of Denver Nook in Denver, Colorado. Liz has built a standout reputation by blending a deep love of real estate with a background that is anything but ordinary. She brings roughly 28 years of experience in art, design, and technology into the way she markets homes, advises clients, and helps buyers see possibilities other people miss. She's earned major recognition in real estate, including platinum-level production with RE/MAX, and she is known for helping renters become homeowners, serving a diverse client base, and bringing a very personal, design-forward, highly authentic approach to the business. She also recently launched her own independent brokerage, Denver Nook, and continues to build a brand that stands out for creativity, warmth, education, and a deep knowledge of the Denver market. Liz, welcome to the Dream Home Podcast. I'm really glad you're here to join us.
Thank you, John. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. So Liz, let's start out with the big one. When someone hears Denver Nook, even the name feels different from the average brokerage. What do you believe is your real superpower as an agent and broker, and what makes your approach different from other realtors in Denver?
I think that I really try to focus on the individual or individuals looking to buy or sell a home, get to know them really well and really discover their whys about wanting to make this move, this next step in their life, taking that extra time and really leaning into the empathy and trying to get inside their head and understand their thought process and their motivations really just helps me help them in their decision-making process. And it also makes things more clear about where is the finish line, what is the goal.
Absolutely. And your brand talks about wanting clients to feel the same warmth, comfort, and safety they'd feel in a real Nook. Where did the idea come from, and how has it shaped the kind of business you built?
Yeah, I was actually remodeling my Craftsman bungalow here in Denver. And the Craftsman bungalows, many of them were actually built with a Nook, like a banquette in the kitchen. And there's thousands of them all over the city, and many of them have been remodeled and gutted, and the Nooks disappear, or the Nooks turn into, an office or a mudroom or all these different things. And sometimes you come across one and the Nook is still there, and everyone gets so excited about the Nook. It's just this inviting, cozy space. And so when we remodeled our kitchen, I put the Nook back where it was supposed to be. And at the same time, I was thinking about developing my own brand. And I'm like, the Denver Nook, it's classic, it's cozy. Everybody loves a Nook, and it's literally your niche. It's literally where you find place and safety and comfort, and just made sense.
Yeah, I love that. And especially like you say in your market where it was a common thing in days past that was almost every home probably had for a period of time, right? The Nook.
Yeah.
So you also bring this unusual combination of art, design, technology, and marketing experience into real estate. How does that background actually show up when you're helping a buyer evaluate a property or helping a seller position a home to stand out?
Yeah, I think that my background in art and design and just visual culture in general really helps, because the first thing that buyers see is that first photograph. Whether they're looking through your MLS portal or they're on one of the aggregate companies like Redfin or Zillow or any of those, their first impression is really important. And we live in such a image dominant culture now. And it's really changed in the past 20 years with the advent of social media and TikTok and Instagram. We are inundated with visual imagery, and we have to take care in those first 3 photos to be sure that we capture people's attention. And that's really, really important. And when I see listings that are with someone's iPhone or just bad angles or the home wasn't decluttered, it baffles me. I don't know what people were thinking. And obviously sometimes you just got to do what you got to do and help the people trying to get from one place to another. And maybe they can't declutter or whatever, but there's always going to be a way to present a property in a more appealing way visually to capture that audience.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because I've noticed that. I was actually looking at a listing one of my realtor partner agents was working on, and it was exactly as you described. It was this photo is kind of fuzzy and wasn't professionally taken and didn't really show the place off at all. And it really is a matter of, you have to kind of understand what you're doing in that business as a photographer to do that properly. But it is, it's an emotional decision, visual, practical, and financial all at once for that buyer. So it is really important, especially today where the quality of these things, what you see in your phone, if you have a quality picture, it's going to come through on your phone, or if it's on your computer, you're going to see the detail. So it's a great point for sure. So one thing that really jumped out at me is how much you care about turning renters into homeowners. Why is that such a meaningful part of your business?
I bought my first house at 43. And but home is something that I always longed for. I addressed it in my artistic practice, sort of this struggle of wanting to be, sort of bohemian and on the road and independent, untethered, but also this huge draw to have a space that was my own safe haven, my own domain, the place where I'm always welcome and comfortable, and where my friends and family would always be welcome and comfortable. And I lived in San Francisco for many years, and it was impossible for people to buy homes unless they were extraordinarily wealthy or had assistance from their family to help them with a very large down payment. And just never felt really at peace and with place. And so bought my first property in Denver, and it changed everything for me. It was moving from having no savings to having the opportunity that, wow, one day I'm going to be able to retire. One day I'm actually going to be able to stop working when I want. And that's a financial relief that is so huge. And getting to share that opportunity with other renters that didn't actually see this possibility for accumulating wealth is really important. And I think also finding creative strategies for people to potentially start that process even earlier in their life, earlier than I did, is very important to me. And that sort of financial education and awareness is really important. There's no reason that anyone should be paying somebody else's mortgage.
Yeah, especially now with where rent levels are at, it's not that big of a switch to get into a home, start creating that wealth, paying down that principal, having the benefit of appreciation, the tax benefits of deducting, real estate taxes and interest. And so it's something that you just are not going to understand until someone gives you that education, explains that that's, part of that benefit. And that is a great story about now thinking, oh, I could actually retire someday, right? From the fact that I made this change. Fun story. So a lot of first-time home buyers are asking the same questions right now. How early should I talk to an agent? Should I get pre-approved before I start seriously looking? And how do I know the difference between what I want and what I actually need? How do you walk someone through that stage without overwhelming them?
Yeah. Oh, well, baby steps. And I always say it's really never too early to start creating a plan. I will usually have a first consultation with people and see where they are in the process. And obviously, if they haven't been approved for a loan, then that's really sort of where our conversation ends. Like that has to happen. And they have to get in touch with different lenders, find out who has a good strategy for them, find out what they qualify for just today, right? And if that's not enough to get them where they want to be, then we come up with the plan. But how are you going to save the money to be able to have the down payment to afford the category of home that you really want to have for your first home? And then, figuring out what they really want and where they really want to be and all of that, that's the relationship that they build with their real estate agent, with their buyer agent. I have a lot of questions that I ask. I'm constantly asking questions of people to really start to frame what is important, what are the must-haves versus the would like to haves, and those would like to haves, how do they rank? Is the, gas stove a must-have? And if it's not a must-have, where does it rank on the would like to have? And let's give these things a sort of they're not a full point system because we don't want to be that rigid about it, but let's really understand where the priorities are. So when we walk into a house, and let's say we're going to go look at 10 houses in a day, which is a lot, but my maximum was 21, and that's a crazy story. But if we're going to look at a significant number of houses and we know the backyard is your number one priority, that's the first place we're going to go look. And if it doesn't cut mustard, then we're going to leave, because there's no point in wasting our time walking around talking about all the things we don't like when we could be in the car on our way to the one that could be the one that you do like. And that's the one that we need to focus on and getting for you.
That's awesome. Now, Liz, you've lived on both coasts, lived abroad, and now you help people moving to Denver feel at home. What are some of the biggest mistakes relocation buyers make when they come into a market like Denver, and how do you help them avoid them?
Yeah, well, Denver is a really expansive place geographically. It reminds me a bit of LA in that way. There's a lot of different neighborhoods, a lot of different cities within Metro Denver. And I think it's really important for people to understand those places. I've had clients come in and they were moved with their company, relocated with their company, and they bought a condo downtown. And, within a few years, or sometimes even less, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that other neighborhood. I didn't even know that actually happened with me in the first house that I bought. We bought it because it was strategically very close to my partner's work and he could ride his bike to work. And that was really great. But then it was like 2 months later, I discovered this other neighborhood that was not in the radar because it wasn't really bikeable to his work. But it's a great, we live here now in the Berkeley neighborhood of Denver. And, it's so fantastic and it really felt more like home. And so making sure that people understand the different nuances in the neighborhoods of Denver is really important. When I talk to people who've only visited Denver for like a work conference, they're like, Denver, I don't know. And I'm like, well, because you were only in the neighborhood surrounding the convention center. And if I was only in the neighborhood, the convention center in San Francisco or the convention center in Chicago, or if the Javits Center in New York, I would be like, I don't like that city very much either. But there's really like an amazing and diverse number of neighborhoods, and knowing what your priorities are in terms of like walkability. Is it walkability? Is it schools? Is it lot size? Is it convenience to get to the mountains? Is it convenience to get to the airport? That really changes the kind of area and the kind of neighborhood that you're going to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And because you speak fluent Spanish and serve a wide range of clients from everyday working families to investors and developers, how important is it to adapt your communication style to the person sitting across from you?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I have a very gregarious and chatty personality. And sometimes I have a client who's way more analytical and way more data driven. And I really have to kind of take a deep breath, and maybe it's just not even going to be the best fit, but you can kind of turn the conversation and I can present the data behind my wow.
Yeah.
Behind. And it's really important to, keep referencing and going back to that, because there are many people who are going to make these investment decisions really based on the data and really based on the analytics more than the emotional response. And it's really fun when you have a couple or investor partners, and one is more emotional and the other is more analytical, and getting to have them find consensus and by both of them seeing the benefit in a property is really fun.
Yeah, it's like you're the translator translating between, right, the emotional and the analytical.
Yes.
And through that.
Yes, absolutely. And then also that is reflected in first-time home buyers. I have a current client who's looking for a condo, under $300,000, first-time home buyer. And, sometimes I'll tell them, that you're not buying this. I'm not going to let you buy this. I won't write this guy. And they're like, oh, really? I think it's kind of cool. I was like, well, you can tolerate some of these things that are going on in the building. But I've got to think about in 4 or 5 years, when you're ready to buy a bigger house or make a change, or maybe you're going to leave Denver, whatever's going to happen, I have to sell this property for you. Mm-hmm. And if there's some riffraff happening, or there's some deferred maintenance that I can see very obviously in the building that might end up in a special assessment, if it even gets handled in the next 5 years, I've got to think about your exit strategy. And so there's somebody making really emotional decisions, but I have to also translate it into an analytical sort of forecast of what does this future hold for you, especially if it's, really not a property that they're going to be in for more than 7-10 years,
Yeah, that's actually a really great point, because that buyer is going to be looking at the inside of that condo. They're not going to be looking to see what's going on in the garage or what's going on in the grounds or what's going on in the outside of the building. And you're protecting them from themselves because they just are not going to have the knowledge of what to even look for. So that is a really great point. So let's talk about an awesome story. Tell me about a client situation that really captures what you do best, maybe a first-time buyer, an out-of-state buyer, or a buy, sell, in tandem client where everything could have gone sideways. Ooh. You help make it happen.
Yeah. There are so many of these instances. It's really hard to pick one. Every transaction is unique. Some of them go very smoothly. I'd say most of them go smoothly, but I sort of feel like real estate agents are sort of like airline pilots. We kind of don't have to do a lot until we really need to save the ship from going down, and that's when we step in, and that's when we get to shine, and that's when we get to really show our value. Well, I had mentioned this one. It was a new construction, and they were locked in for a really low interest rate, but that was going to expire. And then the bank needed not only the certificate of occupancy, but they needed another document. And it was running between the city and the permitting and getting all these different, departments that real estate agents don't generally work with on a regular level. So it's not like I have my guy in the building department that I can just call, because very few of my transactions require that. And, it was making relationships really quickly and helping my client get heard in front of the people that were the ones that held the keys to getting this certificate of occupancy finalized, so they could hold on to this less than 3% interest rate, where the interest rates had climbed to over 6% at that time. So, that was a big one. But I have really trusted advisors in the industry. I have, whether or not my client uses certain insurance agents, I have an insurance agent that I can call. They're going to pick up the phone every time I call them if I have a question about a flood zone or a fire thing or some nuance or new requirement in insurance and things like that. And a lot of times my clients do end up going with that person because they're so knowledgeable. But I know that I can lean on them for the latest in what's going on in their area. Same with inspectors. I have inspectors who I would trust with my life. They have definitely found things that have killed the deal. And I love it when that happens because they make me a better broker. They make me a more honest broker, a more trustworthy broker. And it's fantastic. Recently, I sat down at the dining room table with the inspector and the buyer, and we were both looking at her like, you should not buy this property. And she ended up not, it took her like another week to actually let go of it. It was a long inspection objection, which the seller did not accept. So that was that. We're very glad that she moved on from that property. But the resources that and the relationships that I have created with experts in all areas of real estate, title, lending, insurance, inspections, roofing, plumbing, electrical, all of these people help me when the time is needed. And without them and without those relationships that I've built with them, I don't know where I would be.
Yeah, they are so important, aren't they? Especially because, like you say, these things come up just out of nowhere that you've never heard of before. What? You want me to find out what? And to have those professionals that you can lean on is super important and a big benefit to your buyers as well and sellers. So, Liz, your testimonials consistently use words like patient, responsive, fierce advocate, knowledgeable, and delightful to work with. When you hear that feedback, what do you think clients are really responding to?
I think it's my personality and the time that I've taken to really understand who they are. One of my clients called me a cool aunt, which I really love, which I am. I don't have children, but I am a cool aunt and I'm a cool godmother to a lot of children. A lot of my closest friends have given me that honor. And I feel like, I'm not a judgmental person, but I am a fierce advocate for people and for getting things done correctly. I've let my clients know when I think that they're out of line or asking for things that are inappropriate. And I let the other side of the table know those things as well. And I'm really a, protector, and I take a lot of pride in my relationships with my clients, and I do treat them like family, and I take my fiduciary responsibility to them incredibly seriously. And I think that people know that they have an advocate and an ally with me, and I'm really proud of that because that's really important to me, and it makes me very happy when people reflect on me and say those things.
Yeah, that is awesome. And you also have had this fascinating pivot from the art world into real estate. What did that transition teach you about building a business when you don't come from the standard real estate mold?
Yeah, I think what it really taught me is that I've been in business all along. It's if anyone tells you that like the art world is just, oh, you're just out there drawing and painting and la 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 and fancy parties with fancy people, and it's not at all. It's very highly stressful. It's, it's a lot of selling yourself and your work. It's very similar to real estate. I mean, I always think it's so funny that real estate agents put their picture on everything. It's like it's me. It's a relational business. It's like you are buying me, you're paying to have me, but it's not just like me. It's like it's the expertise, it's the knowledge, it's it's the advocacy. And the picture on the card and on the, poster and all the things doesn't tell you that story. But it was really interesting to me because moving into real estate, it was actually a super easy transition. I felt like, oh yeah, I've already been doing this. Obviously I had to learn a lot about the contracts and get my license. And I had incredible mentors at Remax that, showed me the ropes and how to get things done. But not unlike the art world, you are a personality. You are what people are buying. And that was part of the reason also of wanting to have my own brand, because it is such really a solo business. Even if you're in a giant brokerage, you're still responsible for yourself, and your own expenses and your own marketing and all the things. And if you're spending all this money and time on that marketing and you're this big and the real estate agency, that doesn't belong to you is this big, then what is that? And it was very important for me to build something that was a little different, that was recognizably distinct from the typical brokerages and the typical marketing that you see.
Absolutely. And your background also includes speaking and education. How has being an educator or speaker shaped the way you serve your clients?
Well, I keep them very informed. And I think also a speaker and educator, I learned a lot about improvisation. When you're in front of a live group of students or listeners, an audience, anything can happen. You're sort of vulnerable to random questions coming up or some disruption or these things, and being able to continue to guide the ship and get to the end, even with these unexpected sort of things that come in sideways, was great preparation for serving my clients through a transaction. Because every transaction is different, and there's something to learn out of every single one. And it's always important for me to find the lesson in every single one.
Absolutely. So let's get practical for listeners. You've shared advice about financing from a realtor's perspective. And one of your key points is that preparation matters because financing behavior can make the difference between closing and losing out. From your perspective as a realtor, what do buyers need to understand about choosing the right lender and getting financially ready?
Very good question. And this is something that I think anyone who's going to buy a home or sell a home and buy a new home needs to understand from the get-go, because there's absolutely no point in starting to think about what the future holds unless you understand your capabilities and what it takes to get from one place to the other. I always encourage you, we are obligated to share 3 lenders at a minimum. And I think that is actually really important, because every lender, every bank or credit union or brokerage is going to offer different things, and it's not one size fits all. And there's some people who are going to qualify for one kind of loan and not another kind of loan. And then, there could be a product that a different bank is offering their more exclusive clients or private clients, whatever they want to call them. I had a few clients last year that were getting a product from their investment bank because they had enough in there, and it was like an ARM, but it was a 10-year ARM. So like that was fantastic to get an ARM rate, but know that you were locked in for 10 years. That was like, what? And maybe there's a 5 or a 7 year, but a 10 year was fascinating to me. So there's that, or really understanding what the 3-2-1 buy downs are. Don't really think I understood that until a couple of years ago. And how you could potentially get that money back if you refinance. Like that was like, whoa, okay, that's great, and it's probably the most complicated part about buying a house. And I think finding a lender that not only has the best product for you, but has the best communication style for you is really, really important. Like I am such a visual learner. I need somebody who's going to have graphs. I'm going to need somebody who like calls me, doesn't just send me emails with a bunch of typed information. Like I need some visuals. I need some contact. I need to be updated on what's happening. And so, the diversity in lending is equal to the diversity in finding the right fit for your broker. And so I say start early, talk to several different lending options, and find the best fit.
Oh, that's a very good point. And, the point you make about the having someone that can communicate, because even if you bought 3 houses, right, you think you're an expert, but you're not, because things change. It's different now. The financing market changes, the way the real estate changes, the documentation changes. So having that person that can communicate in the style you need the most, which may, like you say, maybe talking, maybe email, maybe text, whatever it is, that works in that way, is the one that's going to be the best fit for you. So one of the other common questions a buyer asks, how do you know whether an agent really knows my market and my kind of transaction? For someone interviewing realtors, what should they be looking for?
Yeah. I think that they need to talk to somebody that has the area expertise that they're looking for. And if they don't, that they have the ability to make calls and find out, or have the gumption to get out there and really educate themselves to the process, right? My license allows me to do transactions throughout Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I will not represent somebody else in mountain properties. Why? Because I don't know them. I don't know them. I can learn them, but I'd feel comfortable buying myself a property up there, but I'm not ready to represent a buyer in that transaction. So if somebody comes to me and like, oh, can you help me buy something in Vail, or can you help me buy something in, Winter Park or whatever, I'm going to put them in touch with one of the brokers that I know and I trust up there. It's just not the right place for me. I just have to be honest about where I feel most comfortable. And I really want to know that I am one of the best, if not the best person to represent somebody in their circumstance. And if there's something that holds me back, I'm like, I don't know where the grocery store is in that town. Well, then I probably shouldn't be helping them look for a house there. So that's really important. So finding out what kind of transactions you're looking for a broker. You know that you want to be in Denver Metro. You know that you want to be in Denver Metro in one of the best performing school districts. Talk to your broker. How many transactions have they done there? Who else do they know in those areas that are high producing agents in those neighborhoods that they can lean on? If they really want to work with you, then, am I going to be able to make phone calls and talk to other brokers out there and find out, what's coming on? Give me the inside scoop, that sort of thing. So really looking at their volume, their experience in the areas that you're looking to purchase in, and also the kind of properties. So if you want to buy a condo in Castle Rock and you're talking to a buyer's agent who's only done single family homes out there, maybe they're not going to be the best to represent you in that transaction.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You also put a lot of emphasis on education, market updates, and practical advice. What are some of the tools, systems, or resources you lean on to help clients make smarter decisions?
Yeah, the basically just the trends reports, the data reports that come out of our MLS. The title companies do a really excellent job aggregating all of that data and producing graphs and updates and things like that, and keeping that in front of my clients. The other thing that I really like to do with people, and this kind of goes back to that idea of how early should I start looking, is when I put somebody in in my MLS portal, I say start saving properties as possibilities of the ones that you're really interested in, but you're not ready to make a move for several months. But we can watch the behavior of the specific homes that you're responding to help us plan for how quickly we need to move. Like, are you responding to that property because of the price, because of the location, because of the design? And is the other buyer pool responding to it in the same way you are? Are those homes that you're liking the ones that go under contract in 5 days? Or are they the ones that are sitting on the market for a while? And that will help us create our strategy and say, okay, you're really liking the hot properties, hot neighborhood, hot design, good price that are moving really quickly. So if we're finding that, we need to know that when you are ready to move, that we move quickly. And we might even be looking at some competition. Or are you liking the ones that are a little less desirable, perhaps? Maybe they're at a higher price point, or maybe they're in a neighborhood that you find more appealing than the larger buyer pool. So we know that. So we're like, okay, well, we might want to keep our eye on some of these properties, not move so quickly, because I think there is a big advantage in patience right now, especially for properties that are listed too high. And we will know that because of your specific data, the data around the properties that you specifically like. So it's not just a big sort of blanket market update, but let's really look at the ones that you've responded to determine how we are going to approach the buying process when you are ready.
Absolutely. And because design is such a big part of your value, what are a few overlooked details sellers should think about before listing? Things that can quietly affect how a home shows and how buyers perceive value.
Yes, this is a very good question. And, buyers always want to know, well, will I get my money back if I change this? Will I get my money back if I change that? Will I get my money back if I do this and this? I'm like, it's really hard to go through things line item by line item. It really is the overall presentation of the house. And so obviously, the best case scenario is if the house can be vacant and it can be staged and it could be repainted. That is going to help tremendously. Unless you live in a house that's pretty on trend and you are a tidy person and your things are minimal. So the decluttering obviously is huge. Painting is huge. Really dark colored, the browns and the yellows and the magentas, and the things that were super popular maybe 10, 15 years ago are just like, they're not photographing well now. And people are just going to pass. Having really big, dark furniture was really trendy and now it's not. So, all of those things are really important. But decluttering, cleaning, get those windows cleaned, get the window frames cleaned. Absolutely. Letting that light in just creates a sparkle throughout the whole house. Making sure that your fixtures are updated. And that's plumbing fixtures, lighting fixtures, all of those things. And the color of your light. Please make sure that all of your light bulbs are the same Kelvin scale. And my recommendation is to keep it at 3,000 or less. Otherwise, you start to feel like you're in a dental office. But it's very disruptive to a buyer experience if you're in one room and it's got a bright white light, and then you go into another room and it's like a low yellow light, and it just tweaks people's brains in really strange ways. It's just not nice. So yeah, those are some small things to do. And then the other things, of course, are, staging, but not everybody can do that.
Well, that's impressive because you're the first agent I've ever talked to that mentioned the word Kelvin. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, maybe that has to do with like my art and design, but like it's really, maybe it's just distracting to me because I notice these things, but I think it really affects the overall experience. And even like a light in the closet, right? So you've got this nice warm light throughout the house, and then you go into this walk-in closet and it's like you're in the dental chair. It's just so blue, white, hot, this really cool color. And it's like, whoa, can't even imagine putting my clothes in this closet. I don't want to be in here. This should be like a beautiful place to be to pick out your outfits. And it's like, no.
It's definitely a great point. So walk us through the Denver Nook experience. If someone calls or texts you today, what does the process feel like from that first conversation all the way to closing day?
Well, I think the first conversation is kind of tell me about yourself. Tell me about what's motivating you to call me, what's going on, and getting to know them. We're likely going to meet in person, probably at my office here on Tennyson. It's a really fun neighborhood. We'll go get a cup of coffee, get to know one another, understand the goals, the whys behind somebody's move, and it's going to continue to have those kind of check-ins throughout the process. It's funny because the transaction is always such an intense and intimate experience. And then I do my best to keep in touch with people, but sometimes people get, they're on with their life, and then what value can I bring to them without forcing real estate on them constantly, because that to me feels a little bit inauthentic. But I do try to continue to see my clients, socially, because just keeping up to date on what's going on with them. But I think throughout the transaction, you're going to stay informed of all the steps. I'm going to anticipate what's next. I'm going to tell you what may or may not happen after we turn in our inspection resolution. So you have inspection objection. So you have a very clear understanding of what the response may or may not be. And just moving forward with clarity and confidence. That's really the most important thing to me, is that my buyers and sellers feel really confident and informed in the decisions that they've made and that they're going to have to make.
And for someone thinking about moving to Denver or even just wanting to enjoy the city more, what do you personally love most about Denver life right now? And give us your favorite nook around town.
Oh gosh, there's so many. Well, I love Tennyson. So Tennyson Street is where my office is. It's where my first office was at RE/MAX. I'm on the Tennyson Berkeley Business Association. It's a really wonderful street with a lot of independent retail shops and mom and pop shops. And it has evolved over the past 25 years significantly. It's a very different place than it used to be, but it continues to be a very strong community. I have every year, this year coming up is my 9th annual pet parade in October. Last year we had 400 pets and thousands of spectators, and it's really a joyful day. And the whole neighborhood and more people are now coming from out of town to participate. And it's a costume contest, and the creativity is just incredible. And each year it gets bigger and bigger. And we've incorporated fundraising for the Colorado Pet Pantry into the event. And it's a really fun time. So I think that like my favorite nook of the city is going to be Tennyson in the Berkeley neighborhood. But there's so many other things that make Denver wonderful. Our parks are incredible. Our museums are fantastic. And our cuisine has gotten really, really good and quite a lot of attention in the past 15 years. It's a great place to eat. So if you're coming into town and need a recommendation for food, please give me a call. I've got plenty of them.
Well, definitely. I might have to time it around the pet parade week too, because that sounds like an awful lot of fun.
It's October 17th this year. So if you're going to come out, come for the pet parade. It is a joyful day.
Sounds very fun. So Liz, before we wrap, what advice would you give to the listener who's sitting on the fence right now, maybe thinking, I'm not quite ready yet?
I would say find a broker in your local area and make an appointment with them. Talk to them. They should be able to make the time for you and listen to your concerns. And they're going to have some advice on maybe what you could do now. They'll show you what you will be able to afford in the future if now is not the right time and you need to save. But I would say don't get too caught up in the worry, because the worry leads to hesitation, which leads to the woulda, coulda, shoulda. In 5 years, people always say, well, when is the best time to buy? And I always say 5 years ago. 5 years ago is always the best time to buy.
That's good.
So, just dip the toes in the water, start with something you can afford. It doesn't have to be your dream house. It doesn't have to be the only place you're ever going to live, but you're going to find that building that equity, starting to pay down that principal is so much better than just having money go out the window. And maybe you'll be able to keep that place as a rental and continue to monetize it when when it's time to move on, or maybe you'll be able to sell it in a few years and you're going to get so much money back out of that transaction and help you get to the next step, ride the elevator, the escalator up to the next one.
Absolutely. Well, Liz, this was fantastic. I love the way you combine strategy, design, market knowledge, and genuine heart for your clients and your community. It's easy to see why Denver Nook stands out. For those listening, Liz Rossof is the broker owner of Denver Nook in Denver, Colorado. You can learn more about her, follow Notes from the Nook, and connect with her directly on her website, which is denvernook.com. She's also fluent in Spanish, which is a huge asset for many families navigating the buying and selling process. And we'll also have additional links for Liz in the show notes. And if you're listening and would like to talk through financing options, pre-approval strategy, or how to get positioned to buy with confidence, reach out to me, John Nagle at CMG Home Loans. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, share it with a friend, and stay tuned for more conversations with the people helping those others create their dream home and dream life. Thanks for tuning in to the Dream Home Podcast. We'll see you next time. Liz, thanks again. It's been fantastic. Really enjoyed you joining the show today.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for listening to the Dream Home Podcast, hosted by John Nagle. Ready to take the next step toward your dream home? Visit www.dreamhomepodcast.com for resources, tips, and expert advice. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, leave a review, and join us next time for more real estate insights and mortgage tips. Until then, happy home hunting.